everyone, today's video is one that has been requested many times, so I'm going to be showing you how to make cardstock for your Freshies. I will be demonstrating and explaining how to use different types of images because, for example, if you want to use a personal photo of one of your kids or something, it's going to cut it as a rectangle. So if you have another program and you know how to crop images into circles, you can of course do it that way if you would like, but there is a way to do it in Design Space, and so I'm going to show you how to do it that way as well. Now, whether or not you have a Cricut machine, you can still use Design Space to create or edit your images. I personally prefer this because it allows me to set the dimensions of my images, and I know that when they print, they will be exactly the size that I want. Now, if you don't have a Cricut machine, that's perfectly fine. They have circle punches, paper punches for scrapbooking that you can purchase on Amazon or Hobby Lobby. And they come in different sizes, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches. I think even Hobby Lobby has a 3.5 inch. But the 3 inch is probably pretty close to what most people are going to look for. That one runs at $19.99 at Hobby Lobby, and every other week it is on sale, 50% off. So you can basically get it for $10, which is way more affordable than buying a cutting machine. Okay, so let's get started. I've opened Design Space and I'm just gonna go over to upload images. Most of my images are already in here, but I just wanted to demonstrate just start to finish. So upload images and then hit browse. It's gonna pull up your folder. Just select whatever images you're wanting to upload. They'll bring them in. Now, we're not going to cut anything out of this picture, so I am just going to set it as simple because I'm not going to tell Design Space that we want to cut any areas out, so it does not matter how sensitive the cutting tool is. So like I said, because we're not cutting anything, we are just going to come over and hit continue. So the next screen is going to bring up two different options. One is a basic cut and the other is the print then cut. And of course we want the image, so we're going to select print then cut. And as I said before, I wanted to demonstrate a couple of different images. So I'm going to upload another image that is a different shape. The first one, we're going to have to do some editing in Design Space. This one is the basic picture. You're going to find a lot of round cardstocks that look like this. They're not going to have transparent backgrounds. So when you upload them and they've got, some lighter detail, if they don't have a solid border around them and they have light detail, you want to select complex. This is going to tell your Cricut that when we select what area we want to cut, it doesn't go into the image into those lighter areas, because if the pieces of the image along the edges are similar to the background color of the image, then sometimes it overcompensates and will actually cut into your image. Now with the last picture, we didn't click on anything to cut out any areas of it, and that's what we needed because we're going to do some further editing on it. But this one, we want it to cut the shape, not the square. If we don't select anything here, it's going to print the white square that's behind the cow tag, and it's not going to cut the shape of the actual cow tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to click into the white area, and then that's going to remove the background, meaning now it's not going to recognize that as part of the image, and when it cuts it, it's going to cut the shape of the tag. Now I'm just going to go down to the bottom. There is a preview button. If you click on that, it's going to show you the exact shape it's going to be cutting. This allows you to see if it's cut into your image anywhere, and that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And once again, it's going to give us the two options to either do the basic cut or do the print and cut. And we, again, need to do the print and cut. We don't want it just to cut a shape. We want it to actually have the image there as well. Now that our images are uploaded onto Design Space, we're just going to select the ones that we want to use for this project. And then we're going to hit Insert Images. When they all come onto the screen, they're going to be grouped together. To ungroup them, just click outside of the selection box, and then you will be able to click on the individual images and move them independently from one another. Now, as I kind of separate the images from each other, I'm going to go up to the toolbar at the top and just resize them to the dimensions that I need. And I'm going to do that for each one. I recommend measuring your mold or your cookie cutter to calculate how large you need your images. I always take off about ½ an inch, sometimes only1/4 of an inch. So if you've got a 3-inch round cookie cutter, my suggestion it would be to size your cardstock to 2½ or 2 3/4. It's just mostly about your personal preference and how much of the freshie you want to show around the border of your cardstock or your image. Now that I've resized all the images that are ready to go, I wanted to come to these rectangle photos that clearly are not going to cut as rounds and show you how to create the round shape for a rectangle picture. Now this works best when your photo or your image is cropped as close to the edges as possible. So if there's a lot of white around your image, then my suggestion is to go in and crop it down to each one of the sides as close to the image as you can. If it hasn't been cropped down, what will end up happening is your image will be very small inside the middle of your circle. There'll be a lot of white area around it, and then the picture itself will be really small. So now we're going to come over to the left side of the screen to Shapes, click on Shapes. We're going to select the circle. I'm going to go ahead and come up and adjust the size to what I need it to be. And then I'm going to change the file from a basic cut file to a standard print and cut file, and change the background color to white to match the image that I'm putting over it. I'm going to select this image and bring it forward so it's on top of the circle. I'm going to bring it in, and then I'm just going to use the little sizing tool down in the corner to adjust it so that all of the corners of the rectangle are within the circle. If you don't do this when it goes to cut, it will cut those little points instead of a steady circle all the way around. So make sure that you've got all the edges inside the circle. To make it easier to see, you can go back up and you can change the color of the circle to a contrasting color. I'm just going to choose black. And now we can see that none of our corners are hanging over. So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to change the color back to white. And then I'm going to click off of the image and I'm going to drag and pull over both the circle and the image that's in the middle. And then that kind of groups those two together. And I'm going to come over to the right side down at the bottom and hit flatten. Now Design Space recognizes this as one image. Now I'm going to come over and do the same thing for the other rectangle image that I have in here, just so you can see me go over it one more time. We're going to resize our image. And I don't know where it showed that I added the circle, but it's under there already. And this time, instead of making the background white first, I just left it its original color so I didn't have to go back and forth. And then once I had it where I wanted it, I did go up and changed the basic cut to a standard print and cut, changed the background to white, clicked off the images, dragged and pulled over both of them, selecting and grouping, hit flatten, and now that one's done. So now you don't have to worry about arranging anything, just hit make it, and Cricut will actually organize everything onto the pages for you. Now I did go in and take some things out because it was going to print multiple pages, and for this demonstration I just really needed to do one. So it's showing me here exactly how it's going to look on the page. Now because I've had an issue with my printer cutting off the bottom part of the black box, I always scroll down and check to make sure that it is at least an inch from the bottom of the page. Cricut uses this black border. It reads these lines to map out exactly where it needs to cut on the page so that it's not cutting into your images. If any part of this border is missing, then Cricut will refuse to cut the images at all because it doesn't really know where it needs to be cutting. This can also happen if you use paper, if you've printed on paper that is a darker color, like really only white or a light beige or cream color will work. Anything darker than that, and Cricut won't be able to read the lines correctly, and once again will refuse to cut. Switching over to a different angle, I'm going to come down, I'm going to hit the green box to continue. On the next screen, it's going to give us the option to send to the printer, so we just want to click that. A common question that gets asked is, do I need a certain type of printer? And the answer is no. I just have a very basic Canon MG2522. It works perfectly fine. If you have inkjet, laser, it doesn't matter, both work great. On the next screen, you will see an option that says add bleed. Now, for some images, I would leave this on, but since on this page, I've got a round on there that is, the background is white and the image in the center has color in it. When I have add bleed on, for some reason, it has taken some of the colors from the inside of the image and kind of added this weird, blurred colored border around those cardstocks. Now, if I just had these other four on here that are all color, then I would have left the bleed on. What it does is actually blurs the color out just a tad. So if your Cricut machine is off even just a tiny bit, it's unnoticeable because it's added a little bit extra color to the edges. Now, once it's ready, all we've got to do is hit print one more time, and we can watch our images print. Now, at this point, if you are using the circle punch, once your images have printed, you would just place them in the circle punch, line them up, and cut them out manually. But for this demonstration, I am going to go ahead and run it through my Cricut machine, and I'm going to make sure I get it lined up really well, as best as possible as I can do with one hand. I'm going to place it into the Cricut machine while patting down the edges because I do need a new mat so it's not sticking as well as it should. I'm going to hit the blinking arrow, which is going to feed it into the machine. And then just hit the blinking C to make it go. And it's going to start reading the lines. I had never done a print and cut file before starting Cardstock, so I had no idea that my Cricut even had a light on it, but this is what it uses to read all of those lines. So I guess this is where the color of the paper you're using comes in play. If the paper is too dark, then the lines aren't bold and distinct enough for Cricut to really know where it's supposed to cut. It can't really map it like it's supposed to. Now you'll see in just a second when I pull these up that my Cricut machine needed to be calibrated. So the cut is off. It left a little bit of a white border around some of the images. And just in case you don't know, because I didn't know, and
this was the first time I ever had to calibrate my machine. In Design Space, there is a little box with like 3 little lines. It's to the top left corner, and click on that, and there's a option to calibrate your machine, and it walks you through all the steps to fix that and get it back in alignment.
And now we have our finished cardstock. Many of you had been requesting this tutorial, so I really hope it was helpful and you're able to start creating your own cardstock very soon. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or suggestions on future tutorials, leave those in the comments below. Thank you guys.